Honde Onde Mtsan. This is Thongya, a podcast by the District 7 Legislative Office. Welcome to our 15th episode of Thongya, our podcast geared towards our District 7 citizens. How are you today, Dr. Bread?
I'm doing better. Can't see as well as usual, but otherwise I'm feeling pretty good. This weather's kind of getting me going a little bit on my old man bones, as I call it.
I think last year about this time we had some storytelling about Monkoi.
Yeah.
We told different stories from within our communities and our family, and it's just that time of year. Yeah. It's that time of year when the weather's the atmosphere is a little unstable. But we're here today, and we're excited.
Yep.
We have a new vice chair of the tribe. His name is David Sullivan. He's our guest today. And I'm excited to see him. Dr. Bread, we've worked in education and known David for many, many years as the director of Indian Education for Anadarko Public Schools.
That's right.
But we'll get to know some more about him. But Dr. Bread, any opening comments before we dive right in?
No, just getting ready for this weekend, going back to the old folks' place and commemorating their lives and celebrating a little bit of their spirit still with the Memorial Day coming up.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that a great deal because got in good practice last week with some good Kiowa singing.
Oh, yeah. We did get, last time we had a really good hymn singing with the young boys.
It was really good to hear
Amen.
that, and I found myself humming it all weekend. All week, all along. So I'm looking forward to going back down there for a while for a weekend and get back up here for the Memorial Day holiday.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of our Kiowa churches are getting prepared. A lot of churches, Indian churches, last Sunday was kind of their decoration day, and now this Sunday.
Well, it's good to have both of y'all here. David, I've known him a long time, and as a person and a student, his dad and mom and his family, etc. Then yourself, and it's good for everybody to kind of be on the same page with that same spirit that we're talking about right now.
Right.
So I like that about. I'm glad to see David with us, and we got a lot to talk about. So let's get to it.
Well, good morning, David.
Good morning.
Let's just start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your educational journey, jobs you've had, and you now take on the enormous task of being the vice chairman of the Kiowa Tribe. So maybe tell us a little bit about what inspired you to seek that position too.
Okay. I'll go ahead and start back at the beginning. Back in 1972. No, that's the year I was born, but I won't go that far back. We don't have that long. But I can. As we were talking earlier, I was thinking about the year I came here to OU and I met with Dr. Bread. That was 1998, and we started talking about my master's program and I was working with the American Indian Institute at that point. And that's where I got a lot of good experience there, working with Anita Chisholm and Ramona Wapipa Moore, working with a lot of the folks there. People that I worked with at that point, they've now moved on to tribal leadership, like John Schotten and a couple other folks. But just had a good time here, working here, going to school here. Gained my master's degree. I think I finished in about 2000, midway through 2000. And from there, I can't forget, the main thing that happened to me while I was here was I met my wife. And we were married for 21 years. I met her over at the American Indian Institute. She was working in the Head Start Quality Improvement Center. Her name was Dolores Williams, and she was a Navajo from Fort Defiance. And so we met, got married, I think around 99, and we have 2 daughters. And unfortunately, she passed about 4 years ago to cancer, but we sure had a lot of good years with her. And so, but back to 2001, I was still working at OU even after I completed the master's program. And then 2001, I was asked to apply for the Indian Education Program director. I had already been working with the school, which was my alma mater. I graduated from there back in the 1990. And so we were working with them on developing the after-school program. And so we were able to, that's how I got reconnected with the administration, and that's where I started. And my intention was to be there a year or two and come back here and complete my doctorate. But once I got there, I just fell in love with the school again and with the community, and it was a perfect place for us to raise our two daughters. And so that's where I've been for the last 24 years, working there. I didn't, I looked at that position not as just, there to do the bare minimum. I really tried to do a lot of extra development, working with partners. So we had a lot of different, quite a few projects that over the years. We had a Unity Council, and that opportunity provided so many student opportunities for travel, for, not just for the national conferences, but we were able to have, we received a Robert Wood Johnson Foundation grant, and we developed a program called the Healthy Heroes. And so we bought these large vegetable costumes, and I had students get in those costumes, and they performed dances for our younger students.
Cool.
And we took them over to NIA one year in Seattle, and we took them to the Unity conferences a couple of times, and they really did put on a good show. And so, but yeah, I could keep going on, but I'll probably mix in more details as we go. But that's kind of up to where I'm at. I have finally, about 3 years ago, I was able to start a doctorate program, and so I'm on the back end of that, working with Southern Nazarene University, and they have a really good program that works for working adults. That's the main thing that's been helpful for me. I made attempts to try to get back here, but it just one thing after another just didn't work out. So I'm working on that. But to answer your question about what drove me to seek this out, I really didn't seek it out. It was really a matter of, I believe it was just a matter of good timing or right timing, because I was just happened to be at the KIC meeting, and that's when it was proposed to me. And I thought about it, prayed about it for a couple of days for sure. Because for one, I knew what the commitment would be, what it would take, and I also know what I need in terms of needing to finish the degree. And so I wrestled with that, but I ultimately felt like it was time for me to support the tribe, work with the tribe, and I believe, I felt peaceful when the chairman asked me. And I still feel the same. And I feel like that this is where Doc wants me to be right now. And so my goal right now is to support him, support the legislators, support all of our people as best we can, and help with bringing us to a better place in unity. Yeah. Because, we've had the opposite for quite a while, and it keeps us at a place where we're not able to move forward economically. When I see all of our neighboring tribes, and I see where they're at economically in terms of opportunities for our people, opportunities just to just make a difference, not just in their lives, but I really want to see us move forward, and that's what I'm hoping. That's going to be my message, is that we start working together as much as we can. I know that we'll still have some interaction, conflict somewhat. That's just part of being a human being, part of the real people as we are. And so that's my goal. That's how I came here, that's what brought me here to this point. I really have to say it's Doc Hughes, really. That's the only way I could be here. And so I'm grateful to be here with both of you. You guys are both, I hold you in high regard. I have for many years in terms of everything that you've done. I've really been it's really been good to see you take off in not only your tribal career with us in the tribe, but also out in the larger world in the areas of acting, and those have been really good to see that one of our people
I always
is
said
out
he was
there.
a good actor.
Yeah.
Even when he was a student here, he was a good actor. Zane,
Well, David, I think it's refreshing to hear you talk. I think we've been looking for, somebody that can really communicate and comes in there with fresh ideas. And glad to hear that you're continuing your education.
Thank you.
We wish you all the best. I think that's something that the chairman's talked about it several times. It's hard to find qualified, educated people that live in southwestern Oklahoma who's able to fill those roles. Because to be the vice chair and the chairman, according to our constitution, you have to live down there, and
That's right.
it limits our human capital somewhat.
That's true.
People who are educated who have been out there in the world and come back and bring those new ideas. I think it's
That's true.
refreshing to hear you talk.
I believe that's the thing we need to address. Is not necessarily finding them; it's keeping them.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Getting them down there, because we produced. David just talked about what I consider part of his legacy in terms of with the Anadarko Public Schools. That's kind of where I got into his head a lot, is in terms of his focus is within the education of our kids. So it's good to see you still actively involved, not just in education, but in more or less the policy and the areas of tribal affairs. But we got to keep you around here. District 7, as you well know, it represents almost probably 50-60% of our tribal
About 50%,
population.
yeah.
It's true.
And yet, they're the ones probably the least served in terms of the type of services that we have. That's not a criticism, that's a fact, and that's just part of reality.
Right.
But hopefully, in your aspiration, you can see ahead of times where we can change that. And I don't mean drastically or violently or hostile and blah, blah. I'm just talking about in terms of diplomacy
Right,
with the federal
yeah.
government and the state government. That's what I would think District 7 people would like to see, more active involvement in an area with our legislators and with our executive committee where they're allowed to do that, but primarily with the relationships that we have. So
Definitely.
we are looking right now, in my opinion, District 7, and that's just my opinion, we are looking for a champion in that area of partnership development. Education be the foundation, fine. You want to springboard from that? But there's going to be so many extreme changes in the education of our children in the
true.
next 3 to 4 years.
Very true.
We've already experienced it, and we're going to need some of our legislators and some of our executive people to provide, productive leadership in partnership with the state and with the federal government.
It's very true.
And both of y'all know that in your studies. That's been difficult. It's been very difficult to get them to change their attitude towards Indian people in terms of assimilation and blah, blah, blah with us. And I wrote a little piece for Tara and them. I said, just when we achieve, the achievement that they, I'll call it, not politely, they were looking for us to, in terms of assimilation, now they won't take it away in terms of the assistance that we have to the public schools. So that's what I thought about. I said, well, we got a new vice chair here, and we got people that have been schooled a lot more. Maybe we can get that energy together and provide that type of foundation for our tribe now, if we can keep y'all here.
Well, that's what for me, that speaks to a core theme that I had. I remember reading, I can't remember exactly if it was in my undergraduate work or if it was even graduate, or maybe both. But I remember reading about the concept called brain drain.
Yeah.
And that where local communities, small communities suffer because everyone wants to get out and they want to go, those that are able. And, that's always been in my mind, and I think that's part of what kept me at Anadarko. A part of it was not only did it work for us well, for the family personally, but I also was looking at it from that perspective and saying, what can I do to help? You know, how can I stay? And not like I said, I wanted to come back to OU. I would definitely wanted that, but I also have that strong desire to stay, and to because you know I grew up. You know, I grew up in the Redstone community. Grew up listening to my grandfather David Paddlety, the late Reverend David Paddlety, his brother Reverend Victor Paddlety. I have memories of being with all of them, all of the brothers, and being, listening to them around the table at his house over there on Louisiana Street in Anadarko. And going up, I was probably the table height. I can remember going up and listening to them, and I spent a lot of time. I had the opportunity to go to college with my grandfather. He decided to go back about the same time I was starting, so we went to USAO together, and that was a really great thing to have. I would go to class, and then I'd go find my grandmother because he would take her everywhere. She'd usually be in the car knitting. She'd love to crochet. And so I'd go find her, and then he'd come along, and then we'd sit there and just visit and talk and go eat lunch. But I went and visited. I would go visit with him a lot at his house. I remember just sitting there for hours. We'd talk, and he'd tell me stories. And after he passed, I continued that. I tried to go back with. I had the opportunity to visit a lot with Bill Kunsa Jr. He would go with us for our dance troupe activities because for years back in, I think it was like 2004, I started the dance troupe program back up at Anadarko.
Yeah. Because
we had it before. I believe Jacob Sotai started that years ago, back in the 80s, I think. I hope I'm not getting the dates wrong. But it was close to that. And so I had opportunities to hang out, I guess you could say, or visit and be with the elders a lot. And so there were a lot of things that they told me that was very good.
I got a question for you, getting right into the meat of what I had hoped we would talk about. As you know, and I'm trying to be gentle with this right now.
Sure.
The office, the position of vice chair, has not had a great production in my opinion, over the past years, for whatever the reason it is. And sometimes I lay blame on the Constitution for that. Not all the time, but sometimes I think it's your own initiative, whoever feels a position to produce and be productive. So when they mention and when they talk about the position of vice chair of the Kiowa Tribe, what are some of the thoughts that came into your mind as far as functions and duties and what role you might play or could play, if you know about the past? Are you able to perform that, you think, or we still have an issue with communicating with one another at that level, executive level, et cetera?
I think the communication will be better, I believe, just because of the fact that when you have I feel like there's a common unity that I sense. I felt that when before we even were discussing that.
Yeah.
And I still feel that, and now even more so now that I've had a chance to go in and see the 10-year plan that the chairman has put into place. I mean, it's pretty extensive. It's extensive in terms of the government structure and extensive in terms of the economic development arm of what the tribe could begin to function. So that's, for me, when I look at that, I think it's imperative as the vice chairman not to overstep. That's a key thing. I have to find that balance, and that's one thing that I remember you and I always talking about, finding the balance and then perpetuating what we need to see. I can remember you kind of taught me that word, perpetuation, and I remember thinking about that years ago. I was thinking perpetuation, because it's not preservation. We're talking about perpetuation, and that was one of the things I almost say you preached that a lot, and that really stuck with me in terms of how to think about moving us forward, how to think about, and I applied that to my program. I applied that to how I need to work with our program, how I need to be proactive and not reactive, how I need to constantly seek out new partners, constantly be moving, not do the bare minimum. And I attribute a lot of that to you. to our discussions, to because how we sat over there in
Yeah.
Dale Hall Tower many afternoons
A lot of 'em.
talking about things, talking about our tribe, talking about how we interact with the federal government, with the state government, all those kind of types of things. So I attribute that, and I want to bring that same energy to this position. But I have to kind of fill it out. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm just kind of seeing what can I do, what is I'm looking at it internally and I'm looking externally and seeing where I can help. What can I do?
How can we, again, practical questions, and based primarily on good context that y'all learned a lot going to school and then with your practical experience. But when I say the word sovereignty, do you envision us addressing that more so productively as a tribe? And if so, how or what areas do you see us beginning to focus more on using our sovereignty as our foundation?
I see that as a key area. We need to focus on sovereignty. We're looking at almost to the point, given the current environment, we're going to have to begin to move away from that dependency on those federal dollars. Not give up on it, but we cannot let that be our main focus or our main source of income. And so that's why earlier I was saying the prospect or the development of a unified front, all of our branches, all of our structures that we have, and those that we want to develop. It's a crucial time for us to develop those so that we can exercise that sovereignty. In my mind, I'm something that I think I remember you and I talking about, of exercising the sovereignty to the point where we open up those relations with international governments and not just stay here like we have to stay within the federal system only.
Yeah.
And I think some of our people, they don't understand that, because we have one of the things that we're looking at is, I remember talking with you about it before in a council meeting, is trying to do some youth development with some international programs in Korea. But that's not the only one. That's just one. But those are things that will build our student capacity, our youth capacity, I should say, and student. But also that helps us to get down the road to where we can begin to make those nation-to-nation contacts, not just with the United States only, but we'll still have that. We're always going to have that, because we are citizens. We're dual citizens. And so that's where we have to look into that, that capacity, especially in economic development. We were talking about a couple of tribes that they're already doing that up in Wyoming and other places. They're already moving along, and I'm still learning, and I know there will be more that that are already doing some of these things. But that's for us. I feel like that's where we need to go next and move there.
Well, my question is, in relation to, what the vice chairman doesn't really, it's kind of vague in the Constitution about what the responsibility is of the vice chairman.
That's my criticism.
I think that is we can say that it's not listed out for you in our Constitution. I think that's been a problem for our past vice chairman who've served in that position. And I think that's something, you said you're observing and kind of filling out what your role is. I think that's a critical conversation to have with the chairman. My observation has been that the chairman is really widespread, trying to do all these things, and there's nobody there to kind of drive his strategic plan, what he calls a strategic plan. I don't call it that, just because I think it's a list of good ideas.
Right, yeah.
But there's no plan on how we're going to move these ideas from the vision to end state. This is where we're going to be at the execution of this vision.
Definitely.
Right? And prioritization of those, like you just said, economic development. So kind of filling out this role, what is what do you see your role as being, just based on what you're filling out?
I think it's been helpful, just even in the last week or so. you know, what you're just saying, there's a lot of substance to that in terms of, you know, and I see that as being, I think it's just the natural order of things for the chairman to see the macro and the vice chairman to kind of look and be able to help in the micro process of it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I've had a pretty significant training in terms of moving forward with a strategic plan. At the school, we had a strategic plan that we developed with OU. Awesome. The OU, is it K7? K7, I believe.
Yeah, K-12 Center.
K-12. And so that was one aspect of it, which we were able to. I had significant experience as a district shepherd team member, so I worked with our superintendent directly. There was myself, our special education director at the time, and then our superintendent. So we were kind of the spearhead. We were called the district shepherds, and we worked in that capacity to. And what we did is we developed 90-day action plans, and we would develop goals and objectives, and we would try to work that all within the concept of the overall arching goals and where we wanted to move. But even then, I had experience prior to that through the University of Virginia. So we, the school district, entered into a partnership with the University of Virginia, the School of Leadership, the Darden Business School, and so we were able to travel to the Darden Business School there in Virginia, or in the town just went right out of my head, but I'll think of it here in a second. But we were able to go through and receive really significant training from top level professors and folks that they brought in, government officials, and we talked about and we learned. And we read articles about Toyota Industries and all of these. It was pretty significant training. It was at least 2 or 3 years of training. So I could see that. Back to the question, I could see that as being a skill and something that I could help with. And that's what when we as soon as I've started as soon as I started I was sworn in, and I just somewhat hit the ground running. Yeah. And I've also been trying to close out at the school as well, because I didn't want to leave them just right in the middle of the end of the year stuff, everything that needs to happen. And so we worked it out to where I'm trying to get all that done. And so once that's completed, then I could really, focus, which is just in a couple more weeks, and then I'll be finished.
I want to give you a situation, hypothetical, and to me it's in relation to the future in regard to what's happening in our country today in politics. It's relevant to us as a tribe, and I want you to kind of respond a little bit to it. I maintain today that culture is one of the foundations to our existence, as well as land base. I maintain that and teach that a lot when we were here a lot. So in my past 10 years of exploring the cultural concept within our community, I got to the point to where I formulated my own little hypothesis that our Indian parents today don't teach their culture to their children in the home environment, in the home cultural environment, and the public schools does minimal work in that for various political reasons and ignorance, I'll be blunt about that, at the public school level. So somebody has to pick up the baton of education in the lives of these children. Otherwise, they're not going to be as fortunate as grandpa and grandma and aunt, uncle and aunt, and have a little bit of cultural grounding, Kiowa culture. That's true. I've been advocating for the focus on what comes first, education or business, economic development. I say education, personally speaking. But we aren't doing much of it, in my opinion, practically speaking, with the little ones. I'm talking about 10, 11, 12, 13. Now, what do you think about the tribe getting actively, productively, proactive in developing their own training institute within the tribe, teaching communities how to be or what Kiowa culture, history, values are, and making it available, not making it mandatory, but making it available and getting out and crusading within the communities with Kiowa education. and in partnership with the public schools if necessary.
Definitely.
You think that's realistic, or you think that's idealistic on my part?
No, I think it's realistic. One of the areas that the chairman has already told me he wanted me to work in, naturally, education.
Yeah.
So because of my background, and so he, I've already met with the education agency staff several times, and met with the director, executive director, Dr. Tony Satok Mule, and also with some of our directors. And I can really see that there are some basic, or I should say, they're beginning stages of that. Our child care director, Jonna Beartrack, she has some programs starting, and you may have seen the Segi Says program that she's developing, and that's going to take off. I know that there will be some further developments with that, because it's still, I don't know, I think just within the first year or so of development. So those are things that are developing, and I know there could be more. I mean, that's what my hope is, and that's what I'll plan and want to work with them in terms of making sure that we do have that available, so that we can have that. Because you're right, that's back to what I was saying. That was one of your core elements, core things was language perpetuation, cultural perpetuation, and keeping that moving forward. And not think of it in the past, but think of it moving forward.
Sure.
And so that requires that we do some new things. It requires that we have continuity. And so it requires that we have some continuity in terms of leadership, in terms of, and not just in the executive branch, but legislative branch. And we all, there needs to be some, the type of conversations that have those things in mind. And sometimes it's easy to kind of forget. I know for me, I forget, all right, what am I doing here? What is this about? And it's all about those little guys. It's all about those families and what we need to do to protect those young ones.
Vision.
I think
gotta have vision.
I think you got talking about education, I think you've got the background to kind of develop some of that. And, you brought it up, language, Goethong, So we're trying to, like Dr. Bredd said, perpetuate that. I think
That's right.
We have to focus on collaborating across programs, because most of our Kiowa programs have been so siloed,
You're right.
not wanting
You're
to
right.
work together.
Yes.
And one of the language department was under education, and I think it was taken out for some reason. But I'd like to see them go back in under education and collaborate from high school programs, after school programs, JOM programs, curriculum development. I think our language, like Dr. Bredd was talking about, is a big part of our culture and ultimately a big part of our identity. Because if we don't have a language,
That's right.
how do we differentiate ourselves as a sovereign nation if we can't
sure.
speak our own language,
Right.
sing our own songs,
Yes.
live on our own land?
Exactly.
I think
You're
that's I think that's a key, and I think you have that experience moving forward on creating that synergy within the different. There are 4 divisions. Figuring out how we work together and collaborating, even cross-divisionally.
Yeah, definitely.
When it gets down to it. So, what are your thoughts on breaking down those silos? How do you make directors and programs work together?
Well, you don't necessarily, you can't make them.
Yeah.
You have to inspire, and you have to talk. You have to connect. You have to help people see the vision, because sometimes it's like I've mentioned earlier. I won't go into a lot of detail, but we working with the University of Virginia programs, and then we had to work within our structure of the district to try to connect people and get them to not. What's the word I'm thinking? Not just obey, but to get them to be internally motivated, to not because it's extrinsic motivation, but it's intrinsic, and that's a tough thing, and it almost you have to grow it. It has to be organic.
Yeah.
But you also have to have urgency, and that's one thing that they always talked about. You have to have urgency because time is of the essence.
Yeah.
But you also have to give that time for those relationships and those elements to build.
Well, I think you said something key is communication of that vision, because if they don't know what the objective is or the vision is, how are they going to jump on board and match up their lines of effort to support that vision? Because and program directors, executive directors are telling me, that I don't know where we're going, and I don't know how to align my priorities with the priorities of the tribe, because those priorities are not being conveyed to program directors, executive directors. So we got to jump on board. Like you said, a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
But that needs to be communicated.
We have to get the quick wins, and then we have to still have those outward goals and objectives.
One more closing comment question. And it's a hot question. I know it. I realize it, but I figure you can handle that. I would hope so at your age and your experience and your education, et cetera. So there's no questions too hot for you when it comes to tribal policy. But once again, tell our audience what we can expect from the new vice chair of the Kiowa tribe in terms of his role, his function, his vision, however you want to conclude, what you bring to us as a tribe now.
What I bring is a passion to unite, a passion to work with everyone as best as I possibly can, but to put progress. How would you say it? I guess progress monitoring or progression, where we have benchmarks, where we have those elements where we can look at that vision that we all want to see. Because it's not just one person's vision. The things that you see in those, that's what we all want. We all want it. We all want to see our tribes, tribal members successful. Yeah. And we want our tribal members to not just get to the point where they're needing help, but they're able to give help, and they're able to support, and put into the tribe. To where we have entrepreneurs and different people like that. But as far as for me, that's what I want to see in the time that I have. I don't know how long that's going to be. I don't know if it'll be till the end of the term or if there will be longer. I'll leave that up to Daki. But I want to see in that time frame, I want to help. And even beyond that, now that I've moved from the education world into this world, like I said at the beginning, I feel like this is where I need to be. This is where I was supposed to be. I feel like I'm in the right place at the right time. And so however that looks, however long that goes, I'm going to do that day in and day out.
That's why I emailed you the name of 2 texts.
Yes.
And they're very pragmatic texts that relate to policy, administration, education, and come from some great people. A great person, one.
I appreciate those.
Martin. That's a good example.
I remember meeting him. Yeah. You brought him here.
That's right. We brought him down here. He's done well he did well, pardon, and God bless his soul. Excuse me for bringing his name up. I know it's not proper, but I think it's relevant to what we're talking about. So they will understand. And hey, David, I want to thank you very much for coming in. I'm very happy for us. I'm very proud of you and what you've accomplished. I look forward to seeing us make even greater strides in these turbulent times for our children and for the tribe, and our identity and sovereignty of our tribe. Hopefully we can stay in existence for another decade.
Yeah. Well,
definitely.
Yes, thank you, David, for being on our
Thank you
podcast
for inviting
today.
me.
Let me tell you this, that, and I'm not just, trying to, I don't know what the term is, blow smoke at you or anything.
No.
But for me, I was really excited that you're willing to step into this role, because we've been looking for leadership from within our community, somebody who's been raised around the community, knows our values as people, knows the community, knows our people, and I think people have been asking, like, who can we look to? And I think that you're going to find out that you're a major part of that within our community. And I want to keep you in prayer and continue to support you, just because I know you're a good person.
Thank you.
And I know your family, the Paddlety family, your David Paddlety, strong language advocate,
Definitely.
strong in prayer, and knew who we are. And I think you know that. And that's what's going to make you a good leader, putting your people first. So thank you for doing that.
Sure.
I'm
Put your
always,
yeah.
I'm always encouraging our viewers to chat with us, participate. And what I've tried to tell y'all many times that our government is only as good as the number of people who participate in it. So you get involved. You
Good
gotta,
participation.
That's exactly right. Well, you got a good man here. You call him, and he will respond to you and address your comments, your questions, etc. Even when you get Z with him at times, probably he'll still just sit back and listen because he's from an old school, but he's got some good formal schooling.
Yeah.
Use him, and I encourage him to use his resources to people that he knows, especially the elders nowadays called baby boomers. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, David. I
Aho.
appreciate it. Aho deon day and honde on damn san. Our Kiowa people, our tribe, has never been together in one government, one location. We moved around in bands, and the operation of a band chief. The only time we came together as one tribe was for our gato, our Sundance. And so a lot of our societies are built upon that Sundance structure, or we call it Yapahega, or warrior structure. Warriors had societies. You had the adult societies that included the ones that I know about. I know there's the ones that are written about, but I don't quite know them. But the adult societies include the Tokonga, the Taimpega, the Ohomo, and then we had at one time an elite society called the Goinsega, top 10 warriors of the tribe. That no longer exists, but those 4 adult societies are where our warriors existed in terms of the Yapahega. We had 2 young men's societies. That was the Saint An, the horse headdresses. And then you also had the Altoi, the young sheep, or mountain sheep, as people call them. And then at the very end, at the beginning, was the Polai. And the Polai was the rabbits. So in the beginning, that was I guess that was the beginning of our educational system. You learned from, older men, how to, they had their own teepees, the rabbits did. Used to be just men. Now we include young women, but, the rabbits were the beginning of that Yapahega, that lifestyle. And then you advanced up into the 2 other young men societies, the mountain sheep and the horse headdresses, and then you were selected to join one of the adult warrior societies, Ohomo, Tokonga, Taimpega. The Taimpega was like the military police society. They ensured different bands when they hunted. They may not overhunt, or they would keep order within the Sundance Circle, because not all bands got along. So somebody had to police and make sure nobody was stealing horses, stealing wives. Somebody had to keep the order within the Sundance encampment. And then our Tokonga, our black leggings, were like the next level of a specialized warfare, going off and fighting battles. Their code was to wear that red cape, and they would stake themselves to the ground if they had to fight to the death. Using a lance was kind of what they danced with in their ceremony. And then we don't know much, or we're not told very much about the Goinsega, about, I know that their code was to wear everything in yellow, and that was what they wore. But that was the top 10 warriors of the tribe, and you had to perform 40 deeds before you even looked at and selected to come into that elite society. And so I guess that's why we no longer have it, because we don't have the ability to perform those deeds. As in the old days, the ability might be count coup, which means you hit somebody with your war lance or your coup stick. Or you might steal a horse from enemy horse herds. Those were deeds that you had to do in order to kind of make a way for you to be selected into the Goinsega. So we no longer have that. But we have our ceremonies that happen in the summer and in October. And so we're ramping up for the Thainpega, our Gourd clan ceremony. Our Gourd dance societies are all going to convene, and we're all going to meet in our respective places. And I think it's important that we know that Polai or Polayop is the first society for our young people to kind of get involved with, and our first form of education, and teaches our values, who we are as Kiowa people, and teaches us a little bit about leadership. And the story I'm going to share with you today and there's a song that goes along with it, it used to be a children's song. Now we've included it in our Polai, our rabbit society, as part of their dance in the summer. But it talks about a time when the Kiowas, they were camped up north, and they were camped at the base of these mountains. And I guess it started to snow, and the snow got bigger, and they got snowed in, and they couldn't really move their camp. At the time, they were running low on food too, and so what had happened was there was this young boy who lived. He was an orphan. He lived with this old lady, and their camp was kind of a little bit far out of the larger encampment, but they were both felt like they were outcasts a little bit. And this boy tried to play with the other young men, teenagers, but they would make fun of him sometimes. And one time, I guess he was being made fun of, and he went back to his teepee where that old lady that was taking care of him was, and she was, but he was pouting. He was mad because he wasn't accepted by the other young men, Thogul. And so he threw himself down, and I guess he was pouting around, threw himself down, pouting, and he broke his grandmother's black horn spoon, a big, like maybe made out of a buffalo horn. He broke it, and when he heard it snap, well, he could smell like buffalo on the wind, and so he kind of felt like he had been given something. Something happened to him. So he told his grandmother. He said, "Grandma, I smell buffalo, like fresh buffalo, like somewhere. I think I've gotten. I want to go out there and go show the men." And his grandma spanked him first, spanked him for breaking her spoon, and then she got mad at him because she didn't want him to tell what had happened, because she said, "Don't tell those men that they're going to kill us, or they're going to leave us, and we're not going to make it." So he pleaded with her, and finally she gave in, and he went and told those chiefs. He goes, "I know where there's buffalo. There's some buffalo close by, and they're snowed in, I think, in a valley or something, can't get out." And so they were running low on food, so I guess that young boy took him out there in the mountains, and they found some buffalo that they were able to butcher and bring back to the people. So, moral of the story, I guess a moral or lesson here is, don't ever be afraid to speak up and for your people. And that young boy, he was a young man, was given that power. And I think that's what we're looking for in terms of leadership now. We're looking for people who want to speak up and do for their people, no matter what the cost. And this song goes along with it. It says, "I broke my grandmother's black horn spoon, and she spanked me, and then I became a medicine man." And that's because that young boy was given that medicine of how to go out there and find that food for his people. Ya ay yo hey yeah yeah ya ay yo hey yeah yeah don't con get boy save no tai kui a ta ho no con don ba do go say yo ho de long yeah hey yo hey yeah ay yo hey yeah 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 ay yo hey yeah don't con get boy save no tai kui a ta ho no con don ba do go say yo ho de long yeah ah hey yo hey yay. Ya hey yo hey yay yay ya hey yo hey yay yay Tong kong ya boy sape no tai kui a ta ho no kong dong ba da god say yo oh de long ya ah hey yo hey yay ya hey yo hey yay yay ya hey yo hey yay yay Tong kong ya boy sape no tai kui a ta ho no kong dong ba da god say yo oh de long ya ah hey yo hey yay whoop 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 whoop. So remember, for all you Kiowas out there, when you sing a song, you sing it 4 times through. I asked my grandpa one time why we do that. He said, you sing it 4 times through because anything you do in ceremony or Sundance, everything was done 4 times because they wanted to send that good spirit east, south, west, and north. You want it to go out to all of your Kiowa people. You bless them all 4 directions. And that's why we sing our songs 4 times. Aho deonde for listening. So the major piece of legislation that we're focusing on this month is the budget appropriation. As you know, the executive branch failed to send that budget over in the stipulated timeline in accordance with the Constitution. So we've got a draft of the budget. We're using that budget that they sent over as a base, but the legislature's going to have to make its own budget for the tribe for fiscal year 25 and 26. Some major areas of concern are looking at the COLA, the cost of living adjustment increases that the chairman has sent over. They're not all equitable across the board for employees and directors, executive directors, and even some of the executive administration. So we're looking at how we fix that. We're going to be meeting with our Department of Finance at the end of May to kind of go over the major adjustments, what we want to see in terms of like creating a more equitable cost of living increase for employees. The second piece of legislation was the updated TARO ordinance, TARO meaning our Tribal Employment Rights Office. We have some new commissioners. They came in and they created the old ordinance, I think, is from the 90s that they've been working off of. So they've written a new ordinance. They sent it over to the legislature for the legislature to approve. However, meeting with our legislative legal counsel, we've kind of made some adjustments to that ordinance as well. And so we now go back to the TARO Commission and have a meeting on what changes they want to see. How do we protect our tribal employment rights within the tribe, and then those employees within tribal jurisdiction who hire our people. The other piece of legislation has been the update of the ordinance for the Election Commission, the election law. This is the extension of our law to oversee fair and equitable elections. There's been some updates in terms of the major update has been how we fill and how we remove commissioners from the Kiowa Election Commission ordinance. At our most recent meeting that we had on May the 10th, the new business that was read in was the resolution to update our election commission. Also, there is an amendment being proposed to the leasing code, which is called the Hearth Act, in which our Kiowa people are going to be working to extend leasing to farming and grazing, some of our tribal property, and so that Hearth Act covers that law. The third piece of legislation that was introduced was to request a name change of the Kiowa Tribe from what's on the Code of Federal Regulations is Kiowa Tribe of Oklahoma, and so we want to change that to the Kiowa Tribe. And so that's being proposed by Cole DeLon. He is sponsoring that law as well. Other issues on the table, of course, is we've already kind of knocked off and finalized our National Indian Gaming Commission, our Gaming Commission ordinance for the Kiowa Tribe. We have not heard back if that has been approved or accepted by the National and Gaming Commission. But in our opinion, our gaming ordinance is our gaming ordinance as a tribe, so we're only sending that to them, telling them that this is what we're going to operate under. And so that we also read into record an Emergency Response Fund Act of 2025 with the burning down of Rainy Mountain, the church out there, flooding. It is tornado season. We are looking to establish an emergency response program for the tribe, helping individuals who may be displaced or their homes damaged by a flood, wind, tornado, lightning, something, setting up a fund and working with the tribe. We've already met with the police department and Miss Deb Imahula to kind of talk about what the needs are and how do we start an emergency management program for the tribe. So more to follow on that. Just a quick legislative update for the month of May. Thank you very much. Deon Deaho for tuning in to this episode of Thongya, our District 7 podcast. The music was provided by Mr. Terry Tsotai. For more information on our legislative work, please visit our website, kiowatribe.org/district-7. Thank you all for tuning in. Hey, I'm I don't I.